I kind of said that tongue in cheek, like just making up something that sounded kind of ridiculous because I feel like trying to describe my output whenever I do, it kind of sounds kind of ridiculous. Um, just because I feel like it's kind of disingenuous. Like if you listen to the album, like it goes through so many different musical moments and in so many different sonic areas that it kind of feels disingenuous to try and label it under one like title. So yeah, I don't actually call it 21st century punk jazz. Um, but yeah, I mean, listing my inspirations, got a whole wall around me of just a few. um, Kanye was a huge one in my life. Pharrell, Miles Davis, Andre 3000, Erica Badu, Jimi Hendrix. I mean, the list kind of just goes on and on. I was raised in a pretty eclectic household musically. My mom was the leader of her church's gospel choir. My family had just immigrated from Ghana to Australia when I was 2 years old. So we had Ghanaian high life music. My older brother of 5 years was really into like Red Hot Chili Peppers and Rage Against the Machine. And so it was just a whole bunch of different influences coming from everywhere at once. And me just being the youngest in the household, I was the converging point for all of it. And yeah, that kind of stuck throughout my whole life. And it's the reason my output is the way it is. Yeah, no, it definitely does. Like I am a big jazz fan. And I said in another interview in talking about like the process of making the album Smiling with No Teeth, it was very jazz in a sense in which I feel like jazz as an art form is an art form where the phrase knowing the rules to break the rules is like that's like the epitome of jazz because like all the musicians I was playing with are so technically advanced in their own crafts that we can really just like kind of fuck it up and just like do something that in a lot of senses isn't meant to be done or wouldn't be expected to be done, um and kind of just like break all the rules and do whatever. So it was very jazz in that sense and very punk in that sense at the same time. I think a great driving factor for me is that I don't really think about how I stack up against my peers, and like I don't try and I don't try and compare it to anyone else. In fact, I try and do the opposite and intentionally make it so that it can't be compared to my peers. Um, like there's a big thing in hip hop about like aiming for the throne, trying to be the king of this and the king of that, and it's kind of like I'd rather just have my own lane that I it's never been about competition. It's always just been about expressing the fullest extent of myself. Um and I think even in saying that it sits kind of well um in regards to my peers because I feel like a lot of my peers like the TK Mideses, Agung Mango, Kwame's are doing kind of the same thing in which they're just um, trying to express the fullness of themselves and show like the new black alternative. Um, and yeah, I think that's just kind of yeah, that's kind of how it is right now. I remember doing my first gig at like 14 with my older brother. Um, I had this beard when I was 14, so I was getting into venues that I probably shouldn't have been able to get into. Um, this there was a scene, and it was extremely foundational. It hadn't blossomed to anything that was like in comparison to other scenes around Australia, particularly like Sydney or Melbourne. Um, And I feel like that's because there's always been this stigma in Canberra where if you have any kind of talent, you need to get out. You need to get out and to a place with more resources so that you can be someone. But since all the huge talents keep moving out, then the scene here never really blossomed to anything super large. But while that can be like described as a curse, I guess there was a gift to it as well, in which in Melbourne when I was coming up, there were very obvious scenes and like trends. Um, and I feel like if I lived in Melbourne, it would be very easy to sink into one of those and kind of coalesce into one of these movements and have my sound become very similar to the people around me. So I think the lack of foundation or the lack of scene in Canberra honestly influenced me more than any scene possibly could, because Canberra stayed as like this blank canvas for me to just fully create and paint at my own will with no kind of distractions or yeah, outside persuasions or anything like that. I think in all facets of life, not just music, the perception of blackness is changing, and it's something that we as black people have expressed and known for forever. But like from the outside looking in, like I know specifically for me growing up in Canberra, all the people around me, when I was very young, like the black people they knew were like 50 Cent and like Eddie Murphy. And those were my two, from their perspective, they were the one of the two people I had to choose to be like as a black person. Like I could be like the gangster hard dude, like super cool, blah blah blah, or I could be like the funny comedian, you know. And it was all just, yeah, it was all very from a place of ignorance, but I mean that in the sense of literally just not knowing. And I think that through the circumstances of the world, both good and bad, politically and socially, the awareness of the black identity has expanded so greatly to the point where the black alternative is uh, becoming celebrated more and more. And yeah, the fullness of black identity is being more and more exposed. And I would consider myself, and like the artists I had mentioned before, like the TK Minds, as some of the greats, Kwame's as part of the forefront for that, at least in Australia. Yeah. So like I said, I did come when I was 2, but I have been back to Ghana a few times. So I do still get that. And my parents lived there their whole lives before we moved, so I still have that culture very much imbued in my household and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, I still remember the first like day of school so vividly, and just like the complete otherness of that day, and just like very visibly being like the outcast. And um as I've said before, I have an older brother of 5 years, and just going through school, watching him go at a uh higher grade than me, I guess, because he was 5 years older. Watching how he navigated through these white spaces really influenced how I did it, but in a opposing way, I guess. I guess like, yeah, existing in these spaces, especially as a kid, um, as I said, there was a huge sense of otherness. And in my mind, from watching my brother especially, I kind of figured out that you could either assimilate and try your best to like fit in and just like, I guess, disregard any kind of microaggressions or ignorance and kind of brush it off and just be, yeah, try and fit the mold as much as possible to make your life easier. Or you can just like go the complete other way, um, which is what a path that I decided to take after watching my brother try and assimilate a bit more. And neither of these paths I think are necessarily wrong, because I feel like, just for your own safety mentally and physically, assimilating is probably a smarter thing to do. Um, but yeah, it just wasn't the path for me, and I'm very glad I was able to figure that out when I was young. We like year two, maybe younger, but it's just from having a brother 5 years older than me and seeing, like, being able to experience it without experiencing it and seeing that, okay, that's not the path for me. Um, but I think, yeah, so in this role to just kind of diverge completely, I it started as kind of like a contrarian thing and just kind of doing things because people expected me to do something else. But in exploring that, I got to figure out who I really am. Um, and I guess this sense of rebellion almost has followed me to this day and age, and it's followed me throughout my music. A lot of the reasons why I want to try so many things is because it feels like people want to keep me, or at least in the recent past, it's felt like people have wanted to keep me in a certain box, and I just don't do well with being caged or any kind of restrictions or anything like that. So I feel like, yeah, those experiences growing up have followed me to who I am today, in just wanting to keep breaking boxes and show the fullness of my identity and Black identity as a whole. Um, I don't want to toot my own horn, but we're about the halfway point, and I haven't had a show on this run where multiple people haven't said this is the best show I've ever seen in my life. And that means a lot to me because we've worked so hard on this. I feel like this show in particular is like the greatest culmination of the Genesis Owusu experience um, to date. And I use the word experience because I really try and make these shows much more than just like me singing songs that I've recorded that you can listen to on Spotify or whatever. Like, I wanted to remold it into a true experience, closer to theater than just like a live show. So yeah, I'm super keen to show it in as many places as possible, and I'm super keen to come to Perth specifically, seeing as these are my first Perth headline shows ever. Um, and it sucks that it's been delayed, but we'll get there. We'll get there, and we're coming soon. So I've been on the set twice. The set is the show we did that collaboration on, and the first time I did it with Cosmos Midnight, the electronic duo, and we covered "Dirty Harry" by the Gorillaz. And I already had a relationship with Cosmos Midnight, so we were able to, like, they sent me the track like that they had reimagined maybe a week or two before the show, and I was able to like write stuff down, and like we figured it out because we were already friends. This time me and the Chats had never met. They live in Brisbane, I believe. Oh, not Brisbane, they live in Queensland, Sunshine Coast, I think. And I live in Canberra, so we didn't really have much of a way to meet too much beforehand. um, I think I got a call, like we had deliberated through the ABC team and sent a bunch of suggestions for songs together. But it's not till I got a call the day before the show from Eamon from the Chats, or Eamon, saying, yeah, yeah, Psycho Killer, that's cool. Let's do that. And then we met on the day of filming, um, talked, like, yeah, met each other. We went through the song like 3 or 4 times, honestly, just to figure out what we were doing. and then we just did it. Um, yeah, that was that. We just did it. There wasn't too much else to it.
Well, it worked all right, didn't it?
Yeah, yeah, I'm pretty happy. I'm pretty happy with how it went, especially considering the circumstances. But yeah, we met on the day, went through it 3 or 4 times, and just did it for national TV. Just had fun with it.